So my story was like, I'm stupid, like fact. And I didn't want anybody to find out that I was stupid. And so then therefore, like, okay, I'll become perfect. I'll achieve. I became really good at achieving and finding out new ways to figure it out on my own, which became really great, but then only limited me to rise to, I call it a certain level, like a ceiling. Then I'm not operating optimally. I'm operating in a still place of fear because I don't want people to see me as stupid.
Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast, where together we explore ways to live our most joyful, aligned, vibrant lives. On this podcast, we draw inspiration from the lessons embedded in other women's stories, and we use them to catalyze our own growth and success. And we explore concepts and techniques from the fields of psychology and design thinking that can help us thrive and make the most of the one and only life we're ever going to have. My name is April Seifert. I'm a psychologist, an entrepreneur, and a self-proclaimed life experience junkie, and I'm your host and friend along this journey. This podcast is supported by Modern Well, a woman-centered, co-opportunity workspace in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Friend, it is time to start living vibrantly, by design and with intention. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I am so thrilled that you are joining me this week because this week you get to meet an incredible woman who I had the good fortune of getting to sit down with a few months ago. I got to know her, I got to know the work that she's doing, and I heard about her incredibly powerful backstory. And at that moment, I knew that I absolutely had to introduce her to you. So this week, you are going to meet Danielle Jokinen. She is the owner of Minnesota Power Yoga, which is a yoga studio in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, but Danielle takes a very specific approach to the practice of yoga. In particular, she uses these bodily movements, these poses and movements within the practice of yoga, along with some guided self-awareness and questioning techniques to help people uncover stories that might have been in their past that have led them to have certain beliefs about themselves or their potential. She's also used this practice to help people uncover what it is that they want to point their life toward. In particular, that might mean, somebody wants to decide to come from a place of love in every aspect of their life, or they want to come from a place of gratitude in every aspect of their life. And Danielle has this incredibly calming presence and this amazing ability to help unlock that desire in each person. She has this amazing ability to connect to people and help them uncover what it is they want to intentionally put into their lives, the miracle they want to experience in their lives. And that's what her specific yoga practice does. She's also the founder of an exercise and yoga and wellness technique called YOD, which is Your Own Determination. This is a practice of using yoga in conjunction with high interval intensity training. So it's really using yoga to ground you and keep you present, but then using this high intensity workout to put you in a place of adversity. So think about that. You're using yoga to train your mind to be present and mindful, but then you're putting yourself in a place of adversity and training your mind to stay mindful and stay present. And I mention this because this has been something that was so critical in Danielle's own life. So during this interview, she's going to talk about the experience she's had with her daughter and this very, very rare diagnosis that her daughter has, and how the adversity of the first couple of years of her daughter's life, it was something that she was able to thrive through because of the intentional work that she has done in her studio and on the yoga mat. So this is a beautiful example of somebody intentionally cultivating psychological strength through their daily practices so that when life tests them, when life throws something adverse at them, they can thrive. So Danielle's a beautiful example of that, and I'm absolutely thrilled for you all to meet her. All right, let's listen to that conversation. Danielle, I'm so stinking excited that you are on this episode because when we first met, I really felt like what I learned about you and what I learned about your work was it just cracked my heart open. So I'm just thrilled that you're here to chat with us today.
Thank you. And I'm really honored to be here and talk with you as well. It was just an instant connection, and I love what you're up to as well. So I'm honored to be here with you.
Amazing. So we actually met sort of through a mutual acquaintance. So someone who was in a mastermind that I was recently in runs this incredible group of women in the Minneapolis area called Girl Creative. And she had an event at your studio, and that's how we met. So I know lots about you, and I know lots about your background in the amazing work you do, but my audience doesn't. So tell us a little bit about you, about the work that you do, your studio, all of that.
Yes. Well, I have a yoga studio. It's called Minnesota Power Yoga. We've been open for about 6 years now. And here we have classes, workshops, yoga teacher trainings, where my heart lies deeply in the teacher training. And we also have a YOD program that I created, which stands for Your Own Determination. To me, that got birthed out of also creating this space. So I have these two businesses, Minnesota Power Yoga and YOD. And I also have a 2-year-old who I adore every day. And I live in Minneapolis.
Amazing. So your particular approach to yoga is very unique. And this was one of the very first things. I walked into your space and I saw the most wonderful things written on the walls, and it just feels, I don't know what the right word is. It feels holistic. It felt like I'm going to do more than get a workout here. I felt like this is a place that I can go to be inspired, to make sure that I'm really feeding all of who I am, is what I felt like when I went into that place. Can you just tell us a little bit about your approach to yoga? And maybe that's YOD, maybe it's part of, both sides of the business. I don't know, but tell us a little bit about your particular approach.
Yeah, absolutely. At our studio, we focus on the yoga movement, like getting into your physical body. The YOD movements, just move your body. And then also meditation, or getting still, like stillness, allowing yourself to be calm. And then the third part is self-inquiry, allowing yourself to be with questions and self-reflection, and really changing like your mindset and leading a life with intention. We really focus on like that wholeness of the whole. Our teacher training is called the wholehearted teacher training. So looking at your whole life, like your physical fitness, but then also getting to the why. Like, but why do you want to do yoga, or why do you want to do YOD, and what are you up to on your yoga mat, and then also in your life. And we really get to know our students. And our mission at the studio is we exist to inspire and awaken people to their purpose, like led with passion, so that they can be in life of creation and contribution. And I see that happening like day after day after day at the studio. And then with the YOD class as well, it puts you into high intensity situations. And that's what YOD is yoga with high intensity interval training with a cool down. So you feel like calm and at peace and then ready to take on the rest of your day. But it puts you in high intensity situations so you can be present when you go home and maybe come into those same kind of high intensity situations, and then choose how you want to respond to a situation, whatever it is, a conversation with your partner, a tough, decision at work. We're training you to rise your threshold to presence, and then also having the ability to choose and respond from a place that you land in your heart, that you want to lead from, whether it be love, compassion, grace, integrity. So we look at all that at the studio.
What I love about that is so many times we talk about physical health, and then as a very separate entity, we talk about mental health. And more so, even the most obvious one is a lot of the research now that's coming out about gut bacteria. This is something that's in our digestive system that affects our mental health. the link between our physical and mental health is, they aren't two separate things at all. It's holistically, how well are we? How well are we doing? And what I loved about learning about your approach is that there is so much about that, being on a yoga mat and what you do when you're there that does translate beautifully over into your everyday life, because ultimately what you're doing is you're sort of training your mind to respond in a particular way. And I love that you said, are you going to choose to come from a place of love or kindness or compassion, or, what is that due north that you want to point yourself at? And you're training yourself to start from there and come from that place in all of these aspects of your life. And I just thought that was so powerful when you and I talked just about how something that's so simple that people, do at any normal gym, that's yoga, can actually be used in so much more of a holistic way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It comes from a way of being. So like I said, if you're coming to yoga because you feel like you need to, because, you ate a whole pizza the day before, versus like, I'm coming to yoga to fill myself up with love. So what's the intention behind your actions? And in the studio, we really bring presence to that and offer it and meet people obviously where they're at, but the power of the physicalness of getting into your body, and we're just not moving our physical body, we're becoming a new way of being, and that being comes from love or safety or peace. So it's really inviting it in, and through doing this practice for 6 years at the studio, it's like it wakes people up to it. Because I used to practice and I didn't know what I didn't know either. It's like, whoa, I can instill my body with like love. It can be a way of being, and I can use this practice of yoga to infuse that into my body, into my thoughts, into my words, into my actions. So yeah, it's bigger than just the movement for sure, but sometimes you need to start with moving your body to get access to that.
Tell me a little bit about that. Let's dive into that a little bit, because you're saying a lot of things that I think are easy to hear on the surface, but are more difficult to truly grasp at the level of depth that I know you're coming from. So you use this movement to, let's start where you were saying you use this movement to get people back into their body. Tell me what that means to you. Like, what does that mean to get somebody back into their body and really being present there?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So we're, getting into the room, into the yoga mat, get present to like feel your hands on the floor. Feel your breath flow in the nose and out the nose. Just really get present to the now, like the now moment. And then that gives you space to like think and like feel, and then be with, what am I thinking right now? Or, and I ask questions a lot. What's here for you? And people will be like, just this morning I taught a class and someone's like, I'm nervous. I'm like, great, awesome. Like, I'm like, acknowledge you for saying I'm nervous. And then through that, getting your physical body, you get to choose then like, I am nervous and I'm excited. And then I'm leading through practice from being excited. And at the end of the class, they're like, oh, wow, I'm super blessed that I get to do this. And then leading the day, like leading the class, feeling blessed. So it starts with just like, I feel my hands on the floor. And I feel most people, like I used to be that too, just disconnected of like, wow, I didn't even notice I was like, had my hand on the mat. Like I didn't even feel my hand on the mat. So to me, it starts with like, oh, wow, I feel the texture of my yoga mat. I feel my heartbeat. And once you get access to present, like the physicalness, the feeling of what's happening, and then you realize like, I can choose what I want to feel and think right now, but also honor what actually is happening, and then give up like the nervousness or the worry and be a yes for like love or strength or gratitude. I'm grateful that I get to do this practice.
That's hugely powerful. There's two sides of the coin that you just mentioned. One is this idea that we get to choose our own thoughts, or we get to choose where our mind is at and what it's focused on. Because I totally get you, and I totally agree. I was in the same position before too, where I call it, I was living half asleep. I was very checked out, going through the motions, sort of just moving through each day. And I wasn't paying attention to those now moments. And on prior episodes of the podcast, I've talked about this book called The Power of Now. It's Eckhart Tolle, I think is how you say his last name, but he's amazing because he talks about how we spend most of our cognizant life, like most of our thoughts, happen thinking about something that happened in the past or thinking about something that's going to happen or might happen in the future. But in reality, the only moment that you're actually living is the present moment. So one of his arguments, he makes many, but one of his arguments is if your thoughts, which to most of us, the way that our mind engages with our environment around us and the way that our mind is working, that really is how we experience life. We experience it through the lens of our own mind. If your mind is so focused on everywhere but the present, how much of your life are you actually living? If you're not ever here now, if you're always in the past or the future, are you actually living most of the time that you actually have? And when I read that like swept my feet out from under me. I felt like I couldn't breathe for like an hour after I read that. I'm like, holy cow, am I wasting time? Like worrying about what happened in the past and ruminating on that, or ruminating on something I'm nervous about in the future. So I love that there was this notion of making the choice to be present and choosing to have those thoughts. But I also loved the flip side of that coin, you acknowledging that, however, our minds are not going to stop doing their thing. They're going to keep throwing thousands and thousands and thousands of just random automatic thoughts at us throughout the day. And we have to be compassionate about the fact that that's going to happen because it's so natural and that's just what our mind does.
Absolutely. And I love you brought up Eckhart Tolle because I read that book, and I also, my first book I read of his is The New Earth.
The New Earth, and I was going to say that's the other one. That's very common.
Same thing, just like open up this whole new avenue for me to like live into. Speaking to pain body, are we either living from pain or like what's the lens we're looking at life? Constant state of fear. Or can we change that and look for like, for love? And through our teacher training at the studio is we look at those stories that say something happened when you were 5, when you're 8 years old, and then you're creating your life from that story because you don't want it to happen again. And you created something to let that not happen again, which I call your superpower, because we all don't want that to happen again. So then you become, say, when I was little, I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was a senior in high school. I had a hard time throughout my whole school years, and had to study for spelling tests, and it was hard for me. And my sister, bless her, love her, would tease me and everything, and I just really felt like I was stupid. So my story was like, I'm stupid, like fact. And I didn't want anybody to find out that I was stupid. So then therefore, like, okay, I'll become perfect. I'll achieve. I became really good at achieving and finding out new ways to figure it out on my own, which became really great, but then only limited me to rise to, I call it a certain level, like a ceiling. Then I'm not operating optimally. I'm operating in a still place of fear because I don't want people to see me as stupid. And so I'm switching that to trying to be perfect. So I was able to let go of I let go of being perfect. I let go of being stupid. And I'm a yes for support. I'm a yes for asking for help. I'm a yes for collaboration. So then when I lead from that space, I can rise. I can transcend to this new level of operating when it's not rooted in fear.
Hi, friends. I have a very important announcement. If you caught episode 124, you know all about what I'm about to tell you. But if you haven't, I want to make sure that you are in the know. As of August 1st, the Women Inspired podcast will become the Building Psychological Strength podcast. This pivot will focus the content of the show around the concepts of psychological strength and intentional life design, the two topics I get asked about more than anything else. I'm simultaneously beyond excited, but also a little bit sad. I'm sad because I'm transitioning out of a brand that has become such a big part of my life, but I'm beyond excited to transition fully in a direction that'll serve you at an even higher level. And that's the whole reason why I'm here in the first place. So, a few things will change. You'll notice new cover art, a new title, and a slightly different feel to the podcast going forward. The content of the podcast will focus more specifically on aspects of psychological strength and ways to apply life design to your own lives. Again, the two topics that I hear from you about most often. But other things won't change. I'll still be here. Each and every week, I'll still have the same dedication to bringing you guests, information, techniques, and tools to help you thrive in your life. And I hope you'll continue to join me each week. You don't have to do anything on your end. The change will automatically happen on August 1st, but I wanted to let you know ahead of time because I truly consider each and every one of you a dear friend. If you'd like more information about the transition, please catch episode 124. And thank you so much for being with me on this journey. I think that's something that and something else that you touched on when you were talking about your particular way of approaching yoga is through the lens of self-awareness, asking ourselves questions and really coming to terms with and starting to question the assumptions that we have. You know, these belief systems that we have, they're formed for a reason. They came from somewhere. They all, at least at one point, likely had a kernel of truth to them. So maybe something did happen to you when you were younger and you learned that the world is a scary place, or that you don't have control over things that you wish you had, and so you're afraid for that reason. Or maybe you weren't allowed to speak your mind, so you learned that your voice didn't matter, or that you were an insignificant person because people weren't paying attention to you. I mean, it could be any number of things. For me, just through a series of events in my life, I came to have this self-belief that I will never be credible enough. I'll never be old enough with enough experience for anybody to ever take me seriously. And what's funny is, you know, you talk about these self-reflective questions and being self-aware and all of that. It occurred to me one day that I'm 39. I'm almost 40 years old. How old do I need to be taken seriously? Like, April, for real, what's the number? How old do you have to be? And in my mind before, I would have told you, like, okay, women who are 40, they get to be taken seriously. Well, here I am, and I still don't think I'm, at the time, I didn't think that I was worth being taken seriously. And what you realize is it's not the number. It's a mindset or a belief. It's not that the world is a scary place. It's a belief about it. It's the lens through which you're approaching the world. That's what makes you think that this is the case. But objective? No, it's not objective. It's just something that our minds have come to accept about ourselves, and you can question those beliefs. And I think that's just beautiful.
Absolutely. It can change, like, the willingness that you get to choose, like, oh, and then forgive yourself for thinking that. Like, oh, wow. Because even if, say, you do get to 40, right, and then you're still like, oh, maybe 45. You're still going to continue to not be good enough with that core belief, still fueling your life, like driving your life. So it's letting go of that belief that I'll never be credible enough, or my story, like, I'm stupid. Like, then I'll get this perfect, then I won't be stupid anymore. It doesn't change. It doesn't work like that. So it's letting go of that story or that belief that was created because, say, something, insert thing happened. Story was created, belief was created to operate our life, which I've seen in myself that are personally for me to, like, unconsciously, like, ruling my life, driving my life. So it's not until I'm able to uncover those, see those, like, put a highlighter over them and acknowledge them, like, accept them, forgive them, love them too. It's like, oh wow, like, that happened and that's how it made me feel. And then I started operating this way, and like applaud myself for then doing the best I could with the knowledge I had at that time. And then, okay, I let that go because I want to lead from love. I want to become my whole self. I want to be of service or be more for others too. Or through my own healing, I really believe it encourages and offers other people to heal their own beliefs or their own core wounds that are continuing to be there, because we all have them. So we are all really the same when it comes down to it. And I really feel like what tends to cause more separation is when our core wound hits another person's core wound, and then it causes suffering and pain.
What's really poignant about this too is, people come to your studio, I don't know about most, but like a lot of people who come to your studio have some type of yoga practice, right? They're coming because this is something they regularly do. And it's such a beautiful example of how repetitive practice of these techniques and of this mindset and of this ability to question your assumptions about yourself, question the beliefs that you have about yourself, question where those things came from and understand it. The more you do that, the more all of that starts to bleed over into your everyday life. Have you heard that from people who come to your studio, like that what they've learned in that studio has changed the way that they interact in other domains of their life?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I get a lot of feedback from people like, I don't know where I would be without the studio. They've changed, careers, jobs, transformed themselves, transformed their relationship, and forever grateful. I've had one person come to the studio for teacher training, and their significant other wants to come and do it too, because they're like, wow, whatever happened, I want that. So it's really powerful to see people courageous enough to look, to self-reflect, be willing to go through it, to look, to listen, and then to be a stand for what they want to have happen. And that's why I really hold the space to be really safe for people to come to. And whatever you're going through is amazing, and just acknowledging it. So people for sure come here, get transformed through just doing yoga. Workshops, obviously the depth of teacher training that we really focus on, all three, yoga, meditation, and the self-reflection, the willingness to look, the willingness to say, be with it, like I say, wrestle with it, like wrestle with the question, because it may cause some, honestly, that's it's simple, I guess it's hard sometimes looking at questions. It can make you want to run the other direction, or subconsciously forget to do it. So the willingness to be with the question and continue just to show up is what I see as the beauty. And actually then the transformation just happens itself when people are willing just to show up and just try it on, not needing to fix it or figure out, just being willing it to happen for them through this work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is such a perfect example of, I've talked a lot about psychological strength on the podcast, and it's such a perfect example of that. It's using these regular practices to change the way that our mind operates. And, gratitude is a great example of that, where I think it's a misunderstood thing. I actually did an entire episode on this weeks back, basically debunking, sometimes people look at gratitude practices and think, wow, you're just pretending that there's something positive in this moment. This is just something that you're pretending, and this isn't realistic and whatever. But what they don't realize is the difference between, just to take it out of this context and put it in something else that's slightly different, they don't understand the difference between free throw practice and the big game. Free throw practice is your gratitude practice. Free throw practice is you training your mind over and over again. Nope, we're going to go to this good place. Nope, we're going to go to a more balanced, holistic place. You are not going to death spiral on me. You are not going to go down this rumination path of worrying about something that may or may not even happen, to go back to Eckhart. I want you to stay in the now, and I want you to find at least one tiny thing to be grateful for. That's free throw practice. When you hit the big game, that's when life throws a true challenge at you. And this could be something incredible, right? This could be a really big opportunity. That's still a lot of pressure for people. Or it could be something that's truly adverse. But because you practiced those free throws, you're more likely to hit shots in the game when you're actually under pressure. And because you did that gratitude practice and that self-reflective practice and the mindfulness practice of staying in the now, you're more likely to stay more present, meaning not ruminate, not go down a mental death spiral when adverse things happen to you and when life starts to test you. Have you found that to be the case?
Yes, absolutely. And that really parallels well with the YOD methodology, the Your Own Determination yoga methodology that I created. It's why it's yoga foundation, like move from your physicalness, your body, bare feet on the mat, just you and your yoga mat. And then with the high intensity, like put yourself in a situation that, feels adverse, feels challenging. And the 3 principles of YOD are be a yes, take action, and follow through. So very great with the analogy of a sport. Like shooting a free throw, like can you follow through and hold that arm up and watch the ball go into the hoop and be present for it? So it puts you in that space to be a yes. Like I am a yes for this one more push-up. I'm a yes for one more air squat and I feel amazing. Or I am going to take a push-up on my knee today because that's what makes me feel my like strong, or that's what my body needs today. So just really honoring what you need that day, coming from a place of truth and love for yourself. And it puts you in that adverse situation then to practice it when you go play the game, right? Or go, like the game is life, go into life. And when life happens, when you get up in this adverse situation, can you come from a place of yes? Can you come from a place that you want to come in and not shut down, not run away, or unconsciously react to something and then be like, shoot, I wish I didn't respond that way. So it's strengthening our mental capacity to respond how we want to respond. That's up to our highest attention. I'll call it our heart's desire, something that you're up to in moment by moment, especially in spaces of adversity. Or I love what you said, opportunity. Because you may that opportunity may arise and I'm not good enough for that. And then you just may walk away when you just miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And, we had the chance to sit down and chat for quite a while when we first met, or maybe the second time that we met. But I have to believe that this has been the case for you as well. So to turn a corner a little bit, you have not had, this perfect, full of flowers life. You mentioned a little bit about being diagnosed with dyslexia, but even as an adult, more recently, there have been incredible challenges in your life. I'm wondering if you're willing to share a little bit about that and how some of the work that you've been doing within the studio has impacted the way that you have moved through those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe in through sharing is healing for everybody, and number one, myself and anybody else who hears it. I can go back to why I even opened the studio, in the sense of I had a wedding that was supposed to happen, and then a month before it got called off. So here I am, heartbroken, devastated, literally can't stand up. And my yoga mat was calling. So got back to my yoga mat and did 3 yoga teacher trainings because I'm I got to do all the trainings to figure my life out now, and landed in a level 1 Baptiste yoga program. And I felt my feet on the floor. I felt wow. I felt my body, my heart again. And through that week, I was transformed to heal. And that time I'm I want to do more with my life. And I watched a documentary with Africa Yoga Project, and I was okay, I need to share this practice with people. And then I was inspired to open a yoga studio. So opened the studio 2013. And through opening the studio, a business, there's so much ups and downs with just a business in its own self. But the biggest adversity through it all is I had my daughter 2 years ago now, and pregnancy went fine. I was sick like normal pregnancies in a way, but I went to labor, had her, and then she was on my chest for, 10 seconds. And I don't remember fully seeing her, but she seemed gray. And they took her off because she wasn't crying and she wasn't breathing. So she had to go right into the NICU, which at that time I'm like, what is even a NICU? Like, I wasn't even, to me, that wasn't the plan. Like, she's not supposed to be somewhere else. And then through that moment, I had to breathe. And I knew it was going to be okay, but I was still terrified. And through that whole experience of her then being in the NICU for 5 months, because her diagnosis is a rare diagnosis, and they didn't know. It took about 4 months for them to really get clear with what her diagnosis was. And through that whole NICU experience, like after 10 days of it, actually, I even said to the doctor, I don't know how much more I can take. And okay, total of 5 months in the NICU, this is how much that you're going to take. And thankfully enough for my meditation practice, my yoga practice, being able to observe my own thoughts, that for a long time I felt it was my fault. Like, it's my fault. I did something wrong that she's in the NICU. And I knew that I didn't do anything wrong, but it took me a long time to forgive myself, to let that belief go. That, okay, yeah, I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm a yes for just love. Like, the best medicine is love, and so I was consistently, being a stand for love.
It's huge to, thank you for sharing that. I mean, as you were saying, they put her on my chest and whatever, I immediately get taken back to being in the hospital, delivering, my daughters, and that whole experience is so emotional and unpredictable, and it's such a big change in someone's life that you're really going into it only focusing on, okay, I'm going into labor and I'm going to be in labor, and then nobody really expects that there will be a NICU stay after that. So when something like that does happen, it's incredibly shocking. And what's really notable about the way that you described it is when that happened, your instinct was, okay, I need to breathe through this. Because that's not where most people's minds would go who haven't done the training that you've done.
Absolutely. I mean, I knew I had to, because I wanted to be there for her. So if I wasn't able to be there, like present, focus, like what does she need, then I wouldn't be able to be there for her and like offer that. So I was really working on being my best self to be there for her with trust, with faith, with whatever it is. So yeah, my breath is the number one focus, is what connects your heart and your mind and your body all together. So I didn't know what else to do. And I always tell people, like, when in doubt, breathe and then go from there. And then maybe breathe again and then go from there. So I always say, change your breath, to help facilitate or change your thoughts. Because like typically if I don't breathe, then it just spirals downhill. So that doesn't work.
And you mentioned she was in the NICU for 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like when she got out?
It was still hard, for sure. She had a feeding tube in her nose. She was diagnosed with a diagnosis that is, like I said, really rare and caused her to have breathing issues, diagnosed with low tone, and some other issues that the doctors are still, like, she has doctor checkups, and still, her diagnosis is teaching a lot of doctors of, like, what to do. There's 8 other kiddos in the world with her diagnosis, so it's an ongoing, just a daily looking, and that's why my mama bear instincts are really high alert to tune in to what she needs, and trust, like really trusting that moms know. I can shout out to all the moms out there. It's like, trust your instincts. But when we brought her home, she still had a feeding tube in her nose. She had a BiPAP machine at night. So we had nurses, like revolving care all the time. So it was exhausting. And did the best I could to still like obviously take care of me. And then I was pumping. So I pumped till about 18 months. And so she was getting breast milk, which was awesome. We put the BiPAP on her face sometimes and she wouldn't want it. So it was a constant 24/7 focus because she had that feeding tube in her nose and they don't typically send kids home with that. So there could have been a risk if she like pulled it out or aspirated into her lungs. So I was in high alert watching her 24/7 and literally sometimes in child's pose next to her bed of like, okay, I can sleep for 5 minutes. And
so how did you maintain your sanity through all of that? Because she obviously had a lot of needs during that time. And this extended for quite a while, correct? I mean, she was maybe not necessarily a feeding tube, but she had quite a few needs beyond what, I mean, in the most common of circumstances, babies are incredibly needy when they're first born. But this was so much more than that, and this extended for a while. So this isn't just you need to power through for the next month or so. This was an extended time period of adversity. You mentioned breathing, for sure. Are there other things that came from your practice that helped you get through that?
Journaling, for sure. I would journal and meditate and then get to my yoga mat, even if it was just 10 minutes, to move my body and take care of myself. And then if I didn't have a ton of time to sleep, it would be a yoga nidra. So it's like a deep, restful sleep. And then also so Evelyn was born February 8th, and we had a teacher training at the studio at March 24th. And 14 people signed up for this teacher training. So when Evelyn was still in the NICU, I'm like, okay. And I sat with it for a while. Do I cancel this teacher training or do I do it? And the strong pull is like, okay, I'm doing it. And it's like being for others no matter what. Like 14 people signed up for this teacher training. And I knew that they're also going through something. Sure, I'm going through something. And if we continue to come together and support each other, that's what it's about. So that would be a practice that helped me through, was people and connecting and sharing and whatever people are going through is like, it's real. Whatever it is, changing jobs, lost a relationship. My daughter's in the NICU. So that was really hard. And I wouldn't have changed it because I'm super grateful that, I still got to practice that and lead my purpose while my daughter was in the NICU. It allowed me to fuel myself and be for others, and also not let me, like, I call it, like, tuck in a tiny little ball and roll into the corner. So it's continuing to rise up, and it's being up to something bigger than myself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It goes back to this notion of, you have to give your mind, like, I don't know the best analogy to give, but your mind's got a certain amount of capacity to, give a care about something. Like, I'm not going to swear, but you know what I'm going to say. Give an F about something. Like, your mind has a certain amount of capacity to do that. And in situations like this, if you allow it, that adversity can take up 110% of that. But what it sounds like is you intentionally pointed some of that. Now, obviously, a massive chunk of that was on your daughter and what she needed while she was healing, and when she was first born too. But intentionally deciding that a portion of that still does go somewhere else to sort of balance things out. That's a skill in and of itself, being able to do that.
Absolutely. And like what you just said, like, rise the capacity to do it. And I was able to rally a team around me, so I didn't have to be there like 20 hours all weekend, which was awesome. And then it created leaders, right? So me even saying yes to the teacher training gave the opportunity for other people to step up and rise up into leadership. So it's like, I didn't want to miss this opportunity of yes, I can do that. And so maybe I was gone for 4 hours of the day. And I took an Uber back and forth from the hospital. And it was just like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. And I'm standing strong in my choice in it. And at times I was worried about like what other people would think. And I was like, and this is what I'm doing. And I was, strong in it, decided, stood on my 2 feet about it. And yeah, and like I said, I would have changed it because it also was able to create this family. And it's so funny, not funny, but I'll share this thing. Is through the teacher training, we are committed to a miracle that by the end of teacher training, we commit to a miracle. And it's funny, I almost forgot about it, but it was like weekend 2 where we're talking about this miracle. And I'm like, okay, you guys, my miracle is by the end of teacher training, Evelyn is out of the NICU. And at that time, I'm like, I don't know how, and I don't know if it's going to happen. I had no clue. And the last weekend of teacher training, Evelyn was in the graduation picture.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm. So it's like I'm doing the practice myself.
Yeah.
through it, right? Because that's what I have to practice what I preach. So by being able to show up for them, like they're showing up for me, and we're all together, like showing up for each other and rising up together.
Something that you've said a number of times, and I think this is something tactical that you can leave with my audience. You've said, I'm a yes for love, or I'm a yes for, and you're intentionally deciding what you're showing up for. How do people come to decide what that thing is? Are there ways that you have prompted people to decide for you individually, what is your standard operating procedure going to be? What are you a yes for? What's your due north?
Absolutely. For me, it's love. Like I'm a yes for love. And I even just shared this afternoon of just like transcend into love. And my daughter's nickname is Baby Love. It's my first value is love. Though to help people through their own process, and it can change in every moment. What are you a yes for? Also known as your intention. But I love using the word like, what are you a yes for? Is usually like, where are you stuck? So where is there a space in your life or something that's not working out? Or your consistent complaint about something? It could be example like at work. I just don't feel appreciated at work. It's like, okay, great. Let's start there. You don't feel appreciated. So it's usually the opposite of what's the opposite of not feeling appreciated? I feel acknowledged. I feel heard or seen. And typically it's going to be like a charge for that person. And I lead people through them figuring it out for themselves. I don't have the answer. I'm not here to give you the answer at all. I'm here just to help you discover your truth, whatever you're up to, whatever resonates your core, like gives you like that lightness feeling, that excitement feeling. So yeah, I use these practices to help you navigate your own life. And so example, if someone wants to let go of feeling, feel appreciated or acknowledged, then the yes can be like, I'm a yes for being seen. I'm a yes for being appreciated, or I'm a yes just for appreciation. And with that shift that you take on, like responsibility for yourself to be a yes for that, that's where I call it the miracle, the magic happens when you are consistently like commit to it, especially in the space of, struggle or adversity or rubbing up against the rubber. When you can stand in it, specifically in those moments, because when those moments arise, that's actually the universe giving you a test like, okay, can you be a yes for it right now? I know you can, and here you go, because you asked for it, so let's be a yes for it. And so consistently, like the biggest thing is commit. So commit to your yes, be consistent with it, especially in the moments where you feel like it's harder. Be consistent, and then the celebration will happen. Celebrate, like, oh yes, I'm embodying this new way of being, this yes that I'm a stand for.
That's beautiful. If people want to experience Yad or experience one of your yoga classes, or even interested in teacher training, where can people find you and learn more about your studio?
Absolutely. We have a website, minnesotapoweryoga.com. You can check out, come for classes. We have teacher training coming up. It starts this September. We have Yad classes at our studio. And there's also yod classes in some other local studios, like in Kentucky and Florida. You can also learn how to teach yod if you're a yoga teacher or want to just learn how to share this with the world. You can check that out at yodyoga.com. I also have some yod classes on YouTube. And on Instagram, follow us at Minnesota Power Yoga, or YOD, which stands for Your Own Determination.
I love it. Danielle, this has been amazing. You are one of those people who I legitimately, from the moment I met you, I'm like, that woman is tapped in. Like, she is dialed in to what is really important in life. And she's dialed into her place in that, the control she has over it, and also dialed into what impact she wants to make on other people in the world around her. I just felt like you were so grounded and so dialed into all of that. And so I'm just thrilled that you were able to come on this episode and share not only your backstory and the challenge that you've gone through, but how impactful the work that you do has been in your life and in others, because I hope it inspires somebody else to go out there and work on themselves to this degree, because you'll be so much better equipped to handle adversity when it arises. So Danielle, I can't thank you enough for being here.
Well, thank you so much. It's just been an honor, and I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Okay, is she not one of the most calming, grounded people you have ever had the chance to meet? And let me tell you, I've met her in person, and as calming and grounded as she sounds on this interview, she is twice so when you meet her in person. So if you are in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, please check out Minnesota Power Yoga. Get into one of her classes and experience this impact for yourself. I can't speak highly enough of it. I want to talk about a few things before I let you go. Number one, I love how Danielle talks about, what are you a yes for? I'm a yes for love. I'm a yes for gratitude. Deciding what that thing is an intentional decision. What are you going to say yes to? What is the thing that you are going to choose above everything else? And that's what you're going to say yes for. And once you do that, it parlays so beautifully over into radical responsibility, right? Because that means from that moment forward, you're going to take responsibility for those moments, and you're going to choose to be in that state that you intentionally picked for yourself going forward, even when it's hard. Even when you feel the furthest from it, you're going to choose it every single time. And that happens through practice and cultivating that mindset, exactly how Danielle spoke about it in her yoga and meditation practice. This is how you get your mind to naturally go there more easily when life starts to test you. So the day-to-day practice of doing it when it's a little bit easier, like free throw practice, is what's going to set you up to do it when life hands you a challenge. The second thing I want to hit on is self-awareness. I talk about this a lot, but I don't think I can say it too many times. The more you can uncover the beliefs you have about yourself, the more you can uncover the things that are unconsciously impacting your conscious thoughts and your observable behavior, the more you can understand those, the more powerful you will become. Because to understand some of those facets that aren't readily apparent, that aren't so easy to uncover, you're going to be so much more able to live with compassion for yourself when you're not performing as well as you expected to, but also start to steer the ship in a direction that you want it to go. How do you want to show up? Who do you want to be today? And the more you can understand what's driving your behavior and driving your conscious thoughts, the more likely you will be to be successful in becoming the person that you want to be. And the last thing that I want to hit on is probably the most obvious: psychological strength. It is absolutely possible to cultivate it. Danielle is a beautiful example of that. Her daily practice of mindfulness, her daily practice of yoga, her daily practice of feeling like she's in the present, feeling her hands on the mat, feeling her feet on the mat, feeling her breath, feeling her heartbeat. Some of those things, we focus on those because they're tangible, and tangible things are easier to focus on. So by focusing on those tangible things that are in the now and in the present, she's training her mind to be here. Now think about what that looks like for her in the adverse situation that she was in with her daughter. Had she not had that training, had she not spent so much time focusing on love, her word, right? Focusing on love and focusing on being in the present and being mindful, had she not done that, I would beg to bet that her experience in moving through the adversity that was her daughter's illness early on would have been so much more difficult, because she had already spent years training her mind to work more in her favor. Did that mean the situation she was in was easy and positive? No, not at all. It was still adverse. It was still a test. It was still difficult. That's the point, though. You don't practice free throws in the big game. You practice free throws in free throw practice. When you're not under pressure, when the game's not riding on you, when people aren't watching, when your coach isn't there deciding whether to sign you again. You practice free throws when the pressure is off and you can cultivate good form, good technique, good skills. Because when you add pressure, the pressure of people watching, the pressure of a game riding on it, the pressure of needing to perform, when you add that pressure, you're more likely to fall back on the things that are habitual. So are you falling back on a place of psychological strength? Or are you falling back on a place of default, which we know is the direction our minds go? It goes negative. It starts to ruminate. It worries. It becomes anxious. Danielle's experience with her daughter would have very likely been very different had she not been practicing yoga and building psychological strength in the way that she was. I can't encourage you highly enough. Whether it is by you checking out Peak Mind and what we have to do there, or simply doing something on your own, a mindfulness practice of your own, I highly encourage you to start doing that work today. Every single one of us is going to experience adversity and a test in our lives. And if your mind is set up for you to succeed, you're going to be all the more strong and able to thrive. Before we close out today, I want to say thank you to my producer, Cameron Hill, and to my incredible sponsor, Modern Well. If you want to learn more about how you can reach your goals in a one-of-a-kind work-life community, visit www.modernwell.co. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit from this inspiring message. And if you have a moment, click the link in the episode description to leave me a rating and a review on iTunes. It would mean so much to me. Finally, I want to remind you that it is absolutely possible to live a happy, fulfilling life, even in spite of all of the chaos and demands we all experience. Sign up at aprilseifert.com to gain access to tools that will help you do just that. I have carefully created and curated a set of tools that combine the powerful fields of psychology and design thinking to help you intentionally create a fulfilling, happy life you love. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and until next week, stay inspired.